let's talk about Iowa State wrestling lineup. Many of you have asked me to talk about Iowa State, talk about Iowa State, talk about Iowa State. Well, guess what? It's finally here. And the only way I get to know what you guys want to talk about is by leaving a comment down below on which lineup preview that you want to see next. I take your considerations very, very seriously. You're the ones that shape this content. Now, Iowa State, how are they going to do this upcoming season? First of all, last year, they placed 16th at the national tournament, which is a very solid finish. They had a couple of All-Americans. Now, unfortunately, one of those guys is leaving, and in Willie Michaelis, he's leaving. He's no longer with the team. He's graduated, but 16th place at NCAAs. They were second in the Big 12s behind Okie State. And as far as recruits go, they're the second most in the Big 12. They have 3 of the top 100 recruits, which is pretty darn solid. Now, in the past, how they do last year, they were 10-4 as a team. They had a very, very one close loss to Iowa last year. And they had another pretty close duel with Okie State. And they were also third at the Southern Scuffle as a team. This year, their schedule's just released, just like many other teams are releasing their schedules. They will have Iowa again early on, and they will be wrestling at Cliff King, Las Vegas, that's new, and the Southern Scuffle, as well as a couple other big matches are Arizona State and Oklahoma State again, amongst very many others. But without further ado, let's get into this lineup. At 125 pounds, few guys here. Aiden Reeves is a true freshman coming in, the number 20 overall recruit. He was the number 1 recruit he was number 1 at 126 pounds, I should say, but he was injured in his senior year. Now, he was a 2-time Iowa high school state champion in Aiden Reeves, true freshman. The other guy is Corey Cabanaban. Sorry, that's name's kind of difficult. I don't know how to pronounce every single one of these names. You know, make a name for yourself. Maybe I will get to pronounce that in the future. It's a redshirt freshman coming in 23-7. Although he had many wins, none were against very major opponents, although he beat some, good guys. And then there are a few other freshmen. And at the end of this video, I will get to how I think Iowa State looks overall as a team and how I think they're going to perform this season. So make sure you stick around for that. And the last guy at this spot is Alec Mackel, who is a junior. He's the returner from last year. He's number 2 in the Big 12. Number 1 in the Big 12 right now is Nick Piccinini. These rankings, of course, come from Flow Wrestling. He placed 3rd in the Big 12, and he was 27-12. He picked up 2 wins at the national tournament, but ended up not placing. And that's why I have to give Mackel this spot again at 125 pounds. I think some of these other guys, these true freshmen, these redshirt freshmen, just need a little bit more experience, and Mackel has that on him where he's going to be the starter. At 133 pounds, first guy up is Todd Small. Todd Small is a redshirt junior. He was 18-5 last year and actually placed 5th at the Southern Scuffle, which is pretty impressive. But the returner this year is Austin Gomes. Austin Gomes, the sophomore, right now is ranked number 2 in the Big 12. The other guys in the weight class are number 1 Dayton Fix and number 3 Monterey Bridges from Wyoming. And he actually placed 3rd at Big 12s last year, 2nd at the Southern Scuffle, and he had a bunch of exciting wins. I remember last year, towards the end of the year, many of you wrestling fans were saying, look out for Austin Gomes, look out for Austin Gomes. And I think this is another year, you got to look out for Austin Gomes. If you're unfamiliar with him, last year he pinned Roman Bravo Young from Penn State at the Southern Scuffle. He had an early win over Austin DeSanto. Now, unfortunately, later on, that loss was avenged by DeSanto at the national tournament, and Gomes ended up being knocked out by Mickey Philippi at the national tournament in Pittsburgh. But I see him doing very well. He did still pick up 2 wins there in Pittsburgh, and I see him starting at 133 for the Cyclones. Moving on to 149. First guy I want to start out talking about is Ryan Anderson. Ryan Anderson is a true freshman. Now, he was supposed to come to Iowa State, and I don't know all the details about that. I don't like to involve myself necessarily in rumors, but he's not listed on the roster. So Ryan Anderson, if you don't know, is a high school state champion, an Ironman champion, a Beast of the East champion, an Escape the Rock champion from Pennsylvania, from Bethlehem Catholic High School. Right now, he's not listed on the roster, so we're just going to nix him. But for those of you wondering, where he is, what happened, that's what I'll say about that. The other guy, the other Ryan on this team is not Ryan Anderson, but Ryan Leisure, a sophomore, was 19-9 last year, wrestled a bunch of opens, and that's kind of what happened with him. And the main guy here is Ian Parker. Ian Parker is the returner, a junior. Number 4 in the Big 12, behind Dom Demas, Cade Brock, couple of guys, big guys here. He was 4th in the Big 12 last year, so he's kind of falling into his rankings, 24-9 overall. And he picked up 1 win at the national tournament, so he did qualify, just ended up, losing out and not placing. But Ian Parker will be the starter again this year at 141. At 149, 3 guys here to talk about. First guy is Noah Nemer, a redshirt freshman, who was 12-14 last year. And then Eric Owens, who is another incoming freshman. And then is the returner, Jarrett Degen. Degen is number 2 in the Big 12. Right now, he's behind Caden Gefeller in the rankings. And he was the returning All-American for Iowa State. He placed 7th at the national tournament last year, was 2nd at the Big 12s. And he was 29-8 overall. Some of his major wins, he is a guy who's really stepped it up last year with wins over Pat Lugo, Justin Oliver, and he had a 2 out of 3 series with Brock Mahler. He ended up winning 2 out of 3 of those duels. So Degen is going to be the starter at 149. At 157, a redshirt freshman coming in is David Carr. Now, if you have heard this name in the past, you may have heard it in another video where I talk about the best redshirt freshman for this upcoming season. If you haven't seen that, you're going to want to check out that video. But talking about David Carr right now, he's number 4 at 157 pounds right now by Flow Wrestling, was 23-1 in his redshirt year. One of his best victories came over Brayton Lee. Brayton Lee is another redshirt from Minnesota, another guy to watch out for. He is from Ohio and was the number 5 overall recruit in the class of 2018. So David Carr is a very strong guy at this weight class. You also have Grant Stocks, a redshirt freshman. Carter Schmidt is another freshman, and then Caleb Long is another freshman. Long and Schmidt will probably take their redshirt years this year since they're true freshmen coming in, and David Carr will get that starting spot at 157. And at this point in the video, I want to invite you, if you love these lineup previews, make sure that you subscribe to this channel because we're doing these lineup previews all leading up to the season. And again, leave your comments below for who you want to see next. At 165 pounds, 3 guys to talk about here. The returner, the starter last year was Logan Schumacher, a sophomore. Schumacher was 6th in the Big 12 last year. That's where he finished. He was 18-14 overall. Chase Straw is actually moving up from 157 pounds right now. Was number 6 in the Big 12. That's where he is in the rankings. And he was actually 1st in the Big 12 at 157 pounds right now. But of course, we don't necessarily know how Straw is going to do moving up to 165 pounds. It's kind of why he's ranked so low. But Straw is a guy to look out for. He had a couple of nice wins last year. Picked up a win at NCAA's, 22 wins overall, and I think Straw could do well at this weight. And then Zane Mulder is a sophomore who's 17-6. Who's going to get the starting position at 165 though? I got to give it to Chase Straw. I'm interested to see how he's going to do this upcoming season, moving up a weight now that David Carr is at 157. But at 174, Marcus Coleman is a returner, the sophomore, number 4 in the Big 12 right now, behind Taylor Lewin. That's one of the top guys. He's 5th in the Big 12s last year. That's where he finished. Placed 6th at the Southern Scuffle. He picked up a win at the national tournament, but I think the biggest thing for Coleman is he just can't be getting pinned by guys like Daniel Lewis and Taylor Lewin and JoJo Smith. Although he did pick up 28 wins, a couple of those losses were a little bit upsetting. Now, this is a weight at 174 that's very, very loaded with guys, many young sophomores and freshmen. This is perhaps one of Iowa State's biggest depth weights. But Coleman's going to be the starter at 174. At 184, 4 guys here that we're going to talk about. And Julian Burton. Burton's a true freshman coming in. Number 91 overall recruit from Iowa. And he actually has there's another guy coming in that's Alec Mcdowell. McDowell is a sophomore, actually. He was 18-11 last season. And then Harrison Swalla is a senior with a win. He actually has a win over McDowell at the spot at the Loris Open. But the guy who started last year and is probably going to start again this year is Sam Cobra. Cobra is number one in the Big 12 right now. That's what he's ranked. Now the guy right behind him is Jackson Hemeyer from Fresno State. These two actually met last year at the national tournament where Cobra came out on top. And the other thing that I think is very exciting is Cobra has shown that he can beat big guys in the past. He beat number 7 Dakota Gear last year at the national tournament and could happen again. He also had a 3-match series with Drew Foster, who was the last year's national champ at 184, and it is very likely that, or Sam Cobra actually came out with a win over Drew Foster after getting majored by him earlier in the season. And I think Cobra could be looking for an All-American spot this year, after what happened last year. And so that's why I have to give Cobra the spot at 184. At 197, many guys here. Joe Teague, the senior, and Dan Eastlick, also a senior. At 197, of course, like I said before, this is the weight where Willie Miklas was, the 4-time All-American, finished 6th last year at the national tournament in Pittsburgh. 2 redshirt freshmen coming in are Francis Dugan and Hunter DeLong. These two guys both have winning records in their redshirt season. But the last guy here is Joel Shapiro. Joel Shapiro is the redshirt freshman who is from Iowa. He's number 7 in the Big 12 right now. He's one of the only freshmen ranked in the weight. He's 2nd freshman ranked in the weight behind Tanner Sloan, who's actually the number 3 guy. And then Dakota Gear is at the top from Oklahoma State. Last year, Shapiro was 25-5, wrestled many opens. I have to give Shapiro that spot at 197. It'd be great to see him make the podium just like Nicholas last year and help out the Cyclones. Now, the last weight, and before getting into that, I want to remind you that I will be going into my overall thoughts on the team right after this, is Caden Sauer, a sophomore, who was 19-8 last year, and Gannon Gremmel. Gremmel, as a junior, was number 4 in the Big 12. That's what he's ranked right now. Last year, he placed 5th in the Big 12, and he did come up with a win at national tournament. Now, Gremmel, first of all, that's an awesome freaking name, is Gannon Gremmel. I had that name. That's a cool name, but I think he's going to be the starter in Gannon Gremmel. Now, as far as my overall thoughts and predictions on the team, listen, they had a solid program last year, a solid team that, just was slightly couldn't get that win over Iowa and Oklahoma State. Turn a couple of matches around, and maybe it could happen. And I think that's what's a major theme right now, is that Iowa State is producing guys. They're getting guys to the national tournament, and they are getting a couple wins, but they have to step it up to that next level, Iowa State, to crack that top 10 eventually. And I think they can. I think they can over time, and I think they even can this season. I think that there's a very good chance that you see a couple of All-Americans this year from Iowa State for the Cyclones. I think it's very possible. They just have to step it up to that next level. They're beating certain guys, but they're losing to certain guys, getting pinned by certain guys, and you can't be doing that if you want to be a top-tier team. I'd love to see them snag 3 to 4 All-Americans this year and get back into that 16th place, top 20 spot as a program.